already pre-prepped my nails and now I'm going in for the application. So this first bead is about a medium to large size bead, and I'm going to be putting it on sideways as you see me doing there, just because your pinky nails are smaller and you don't want to really waste product, so you apply it sideways so that you're still having the whole acrylic onto the nail. And you see me here, I'm going to be patting the nail just to flatten out the shape, and so that the nail is flat and not bumpy or lumpy or anything like that. And then I'm also taking my brush and just making sure that I'm not losing any shape, because if you do this throughout the process, you won't have to do as much filing in the end. So I'm just patting the sides and bringing the bead downwards. And then once the bead's flat, I'm going to be taking off the excess acrylic and then shaping it again at the bottom. And now going in for my second bead, I am taking about a small to medium sized bead. And you want to dry it out, but not too much like the other one, because you want it to be flush with the cuticle area. So you're going to see me here patting it into the cuticle area. And then once you get it all the way in there, you're going to want to bring the bead downward to where you want the apex to be at. And right there is about where the apex should be. So then you're going to see me blending the bead. And then once you blend the bead, you want to wipe around the cuticle area just to make sure you don't have any flooding. And just turn the nail all types of ways just so you can see if there's any lumps or bumps, because sometimes looking at it this way, you don't really see everything. And then also you want to make sure that you have control over your client's finger. So you see how I'm like holding it with my thumb at the top and then my other two fingers towards like the bottom area of the nail. That helps you have control over the whole finger so that you're able to turn your client's fingers in circles if you really need it to. And now moving on to my next nail. Once again, I'm taking a medium to large size bead, drying it out really well, and then I'm applying it in 2 halves as you see me like break the bead apart. And you want to make sure you're tapping it into place. And when you apply this first bead, you want to make sure you're applying it like where the natural nail and the tip meet. But I also, for my 2-bead method, I applied a little bit higher than that area. And then patting it downward once again. And making sure that you're not like losing shape. So you want to check the sides of the nail. And then keep tapping so that it's flat. And like I said before, you want to make sure that you're holding the finger in the same position that I am, just so that you can turn the finger how you need it to be turned, because it's really going to help you see everything that you need to see. And for my next bead, it's going to be a wetter bead, and you want to make sure you dry it out but not too much. And then applying it in 2 halves once again, tapping it into the cuticle area, making sure that the nail is flush. And also for this part, you want to hold the finger in a downward position just so you're not creating any flooding, just in case your bead might be too wet. And like I said before, you want to make sure that you're leaving the bead like where the apex should be at. So if it's too far down, you can just push the bead up. But it was in like the perfect place for me, so I'm just blending it downward once again, smoothing out the nail, making sure that the nail is even at all angles. And then wiping around the cuticle area to make sure that there isn't any flooding. And sometimes I'll dip my brush into the monomer if the bead is starting to dry out, or if I feel like it needs just a little bit more so that I can smoothen out the nail easier. And for this next nail, you can really see how many times I tap my brush into the acrylic to pick up that medium to large size bead, and then drying it all the way out for the most part. and then applying it into 2 halves. So you see me breaking it apart and then putting the bead together with the other piece of the acrylic that I picked up. And then once again, you're tapping the bead right above where the tip and the natural nail meet. And patting it dry and also fixing your shape as you go so you don't have to file much later. You just want to keep turning the nail and turning the nail just so you can see everything. And then we go fixing that shape once again, and then taking off that excess acrylic if there is any. And once you feel like that bead is flat, you want to go ahead and go in and get your second bead. And for the second bead, you can see how many times I tapped my brush in there. And then you want to dry it out. And then not too dry, because you want to remember, you want to make sure that you're getting a flush cuticle area and also holding the nail in a downward position so you don't get any flooding. And then moving the bead to where you want the apex to be at, and then blending it downward once you get it into the perfect position. And also, I forgot to say that this brush is a size 12 brush, and I got it from Amazon. I think it was like $40. And once again, you want to make sure that you're smoothing out the nail. So if you need to dip your brush back into the monomer to wetten up the bead a little bit to blend, then do so. And also keep turning that nail all types of ways so you can make sure that it looks good at all angles. And then once you feel like it does look good at all angles, then you can move on to the next nail. And here you can see how I dipped my brush into the monomer to pick up the acrylic. And then also how long you want to like dry your bead out for. And don't forget that this is in real time, so everything that I am doing is about how long I really dry my beads out for. So here we are again, patting it into place, fixing our shape, turning the nail in all types of ways just so we can see what it looks like at all angles. And here you can see I felt like I needed to dip my brush back into the monomer because I wanted to blend it downward some more to really flatten out the nail, and also just to reshape the nail. And don't forget to reshape the nail at the bottom. Because you want your tips to be straight at the bottom and you want you to have like a crisp shape, so you want to make sure that you're reshaping it on the sides and also at the bottom, just so that there's no excess acrylic when filing. And you can see here, before going in and blending the nail upward and downward, I wiped my brush off a little bit and added some more monomer to it, and then I went in and blended it upwards into the cuticle area, making sure I'm holding it in a downward position so that there's no flooding, and then putting the bead right where I want the apex to be at, and then also blending it downward. And here you can see like the bead is still not blended all the way, because you can like see an indentation of the nail. So you just want to keep applying pressure to the nail to make it flat. And there was still kind of like a little gap in the nail. So after cleaning around the cuticle area, I went in with another smaller bead because I just really felt like it needed it. And like with 2-bead methods, 3-bead methods, any bead method, it's like very subject to change because not everybody's nails are the same. So like sometimes you might have to add a little bit more acrylic. Not saying that you're not doing the method right, but just sometimes there's variations. And also I will say about variations is that like for her nails, she had wider nail beds, so that's why I was picking up medium to large size beads and then small to medium large size beads. You just really want to make sure that you're looking at your client's nails and then choosing what methods you need to use, because somebody who has smaller nail plates, you won't have to really use 2 beads. You can kind of do it in 1 bead and maybe add a little bit of acrylic here and there. And somebody with really large nail plates, you want to do large beads and maybe do like a 3 bead method. So everything that I'm doing here was right for her nails, but if your client's nails don't really look like hers, you might want to do smaller size beads, but you can still do a 2 bead method, but just maybe pick up smaller beads, like a small to medium for the first bead and then a really small bead for the second bead. Again, you don't want to forget about patting the nail underneath. As you've seen, the shape already changed just from me doing that. And for her thumbnails, I did pick up a really big bead for the first bead, and then the second bead is a medium to large size bead, just because her nails are wider. And as you see me here, I'm blending it upwards into the cuticle area, making sure we're not getting any flooding by holding the nail downwards, and then also turning the nail so we can see it at all different angles to make sure that we don't need any more product in any areas. And as you can see, there's still like a tiny space in her cuticle area. So right in that corner right there, I'm going to be adding in another bead. But before I do that, I want to make sure that the nail is already flat and that there's no flooding around the cuticle area. And once I feel like it's already flat and no flooding, then I'm going to get that small tiny bead in there. And then also patting it into place and then blending it so that the nail is smooth. And once again, this video is in real time, so if we were to do 2 hands, this would be about a 25-minute acrylic application, but this is what it looks like. Thank you guys for watching. Be sure to subscribe.